So as you all know, I like to make gold, and currently I only have access to a warrior at max level. So this leads to a conundrum in that warriors are probably the very worst class for making gold. Add into this the fact that I only really like to make gold in instance content, as I absolutely despise competing with other people for mobs or mining nodes or whatever it may be out in the open world. So I brought out a video that looked at the ability to solo Scarlet Monastery Cathedral as a warrior, and it got a lot of positive feedback, so I decided that today I would grace you with my 5 favourite dungeons that you can solo to varying different degrees as a warrior for the purposes of gold making. Now, this is going to be my own personal preference. I have based my choices in logic that I will express to you throughout the video, but just because this is what I find to be successful as well as enjoyable, it does not necessarily mean that it will be the best for yourself, either in enjoyment or gold returns, but it is a good starting point for you to look at. If you do have different opinions to me, then by all means please let me know down in the comments below and give you reasons for it. I'd love to test out some of your ideas as well. But for now, let's dive straight into it. So starting off this list at number 5, we have Razor Fen Downs. Now, Razor Fen Downs is the highest level dungeon that we have on this list, and that's also kind of the reason why it's at the bottom. Now, this is because of the fact that the mobs are considerably more difficult to kill than any of the other dungeons on this list, which does reduce the efficiency at which you can farm. Now, for full disclosure, the mobs here do drop a decent amount of gold, both in terms of raw gold and also in terms of a lot of things that you can sell to get a good return. However, the mobs are difficult to kill. Now, I am performing this on a undergeared warrior that is in mostly dungeon blues, some pre-raid BIS, but for the most part just the things I got my hands on as and when I got to max level, so by no means optimised for this. If your warrior is your only character you can farm on and it is better geared than mine and you were able to kill these mobs very efficiently, chances are you could place this much higher on your own personal list, as the returns are actually quite good in here. You do get quite a lot of cloth, be it wool, silk, and also some mage weave in here as well, which on my realm all sells very well and for decent prices. If you are an enchanter, however, this is where the big gold in this dungeon lies. There is a good value to disenchanting any of the blue items that drop from the bosses in this dungeon. They offer a very popular enchanting material that is used in the fiery weapon enchantment, and as a result they can sell quite well and for a decent amount of gold. On my realm they are almost 5 gold per shard that you get from the blue items that you're disenchanting from the bosses. That gold return alone is the reason why this is such a lucrative farm, but only if you are geared enough to be able to do it. Now, moving on to number 4, we have Scarlet Monastery Graveyard. Now, Scarlet Monastery Graveyard is the baby version of doing the cathedral run that we've seen in my previous videos. Now, the reason why this is good is because the mobs are a substantially lower level. So this does mean that you are going to be getting all silk cloth as opposed to the occasional piece of mage weave that you do get when you are doing the cathedral runs, and you are also going to be having a much more limited list in terms of the BOEs that can drop here. To my understanding, there is no BOE purples that can drop in the graveyard, however there is a diminished list of blues that you can still get compared to cathedral. But on the flip side of this, the big perk that you get is it's much more accessible. These runs are incredibly easy. Even on my relatively undergeared warrior, I'm able to take on large packs of mobs and whirlwind them all down without much difficulty whatsoever. This means that you can clear out the entire dungeon very efficiently, and as a result you're able to get these runs done very quickly. So if you're looking for a farm that you can do on a limited time frame, its accessibility with how close it is to Undercity, as well as the fact that you can clear it quickly, does mean that you can offer boosts here as well. And the gold returns are very good. The raw gold itself is excellent. The amount of silver that drops from these mobs is absolutely fantastic and well worth coming here alone for. However, you do also have those options of farming for the high value greens and blues, as well as boosting. So this is an accessible farm that also has good returns, which is why it makes its way to number 4 on my list. Now next up at number 3 we have the Dead Mines. Now the Dead Mines is a very interesting dungeon and quite unique on this list in that the biggest gold returns you're going to get here are going to actually be from offering to boost people who are looking to convert their characters into twinks. Now a lot of items that drop in the Dead Mines are best in slot for level 19 twinks. As a result, people will be paying a lot of money for runs through this dungeon where they can reserve certain pieces of loot for their characters. Now, a lot of the times when I've been looking to provide these services, you will get people that will pay you for acquiring an item. So let's say, for example, somebody wants a ring in this dungeon. They will offer you 20 gold to get them that ring. Now, you could make very good money if you get it on the first try for them, but it could also be diminished if you do, let's say, 4 runs and the ring doesn't drop. So do bear that in mind when you're sort of liaising how they are going to be paying for these runs. But to that end, there are other ways of making gold in this dungeon. Due to its low level, the actual returns in terms of the raw silver that you're going to get from mobs as well as the vendor items is going to be quite low. However, there are BOE blues and some high value BOE greens here, as again that twink market does make a lot of greens highly valuable, particularly if they get really desirable affixes to the item. Now, one thing that should be said about this farm also is that the items that you get here that are unique to the dungeon, particularly the Defier set, if you play Horde, due to how far out of the way this dungeon is, it is going to have higher value to the set than if you play Alliance, due to the fact that people just don't run it. One other point is that this is also the most accessible dungeon by level and difficulty on this list, so if you're looking for a starting place, this is a pretty good one. You can probably start clearing this solo from around level 40, I'd imagine, if not earlier. And as a result, if you're looking to maybe fund that first mount, this might not be a bad option for you. Now at number 2 is the dungeon I'm sure a lot of you might have been thinking that I was going to put at number 1, and that is Scarlet Monastery Cathedral. Now I've been over this in previous videos, so I won't spend too long on this dungeon, but it is worth mentioning that this dungeon is highly accessible, given that it is just up the road from the Undercity. It has fantastic returns in terms of raw gold and also in commodities such as the cloths that drop here. There is access to numerous herb nodes if they are of high value and you are a herbalist, as well as having excellent BOEs that can drop both blue and purple. There really isn't much of a downside to this dungeon, and the only reasons it's at number 2 is because the dungeon can be slow to clear or difficult to clear if you are at a lower level or undergeared, and also it can be done faster by other classes. Obviously the mage is going to be able to do it quicker, which does lower down the efficiency at which you will be able to clear this dungeon, particularly if you're looking to do it as a boost, because people are most likely going to be looking for mages to do it. That being said, it's still going to be one of the best gold returns you can do if you are limited to playing on a warrior, and it is going to net you a very healthy amount of gold in a very quick amount of time, even if you're unlucky and don't get the rare drops. Now it's time for the number 1 pick, the dungeon that I think is going to be the best dungeon to farm solo as a warrior, and that is going to be Shadowfang Keep. Now there's a lot of negatives to Shadowfang Keep compared to some of these other dungeons on this list. It's not quite as easy to get to as Scarlet Monastery, it's not quite as easy to clear as Dead Mines, and it's not quite got the raw gold returns of any of the other dungeons on this list. So why is it number 1? Well, it's number 1 very simply for the fact that the BOEs here have absolutely nutty prices. Now, if you get a BOE blue in this dungeon, chances are it's going to be over 20 gold in value. There are also many that are 50 to 100 gold, and if you're lucky enough to get the weapon Shadowfang, on my realm it's actually selling for about 500 gold currently. Now obviously these prices vary wildly from server to server, so do check this up before you decide to farm here, but that alone is going to make this a very good farm to achieve. Now Shadowfang Keep is often considered as well to be a dungeon that is a little bit more difficult to farm efficiently for the farming classes, which means that it's just not done quite as often. And also a lot of people simply don't like going for farms that have really low steady gold with this big chance of a big drop. However, if it is what you are looking for and you're looking to make that big break, then of course you can farm this until you get some of these big blues, and you're easily going to be rolling your money. Now there are some that are quite bad, and if you don't get anything at all, it could end up being a not particularly lucrative use of your time. However, if you're willing to roll the dice, you can definitely end up making an absolute fortune here. My personal best is that I got 3 BOE blues in a single run. I admit that is obscenely lucky. However, it can happen. I wasn't lucky enough for anything to be Shadowfang, but I did sell all of those BOE blues and make about 100 gold for the one run, which that one run alone has made that this has got to be number 1 on my personal favourite dungeons to farm as a warrior. Now that's going to about wrap it up from me today, guys. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider liking the video, it helps out a great deal. And if you'd like to be kept up to date with the future videos that I bring out, then please do consider subscribing to the channel. But for now, guys, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.